Okay, welcome everybody. This is Sunday, I have to look at my computer, April 2. So this is no April Fools. We really do have Lorne Smith from Calgary, Canada. Um, so I think my first question will be, what was your first car?
Oh, we're getting right into it fast, are we?
Oh yeah. What was your first car?
Oh, my first car. Oh, this is a good one. I had a 1954 Ford. It was a
Ah,
big battle tank car. Picked it up at an auto wrecker. I was just fresh out of school, and it was a battle truck, but it drove really good. Because it was at auto wrecker. The guy that worked it, he mechanically it was really sound. It really drove good, but it was a battle truck.
how much did you pay for it?
200.
You can't buy a tire for 200 anymore.
No, you can't.
Oh God, that's great. I want to ask you about any stories that you had dealing with the car because we know uh, there's it's not. I couldn't put it on YouTube probably. Um,
Hmm.
so with your background, uh, you usually end up running things. Um, you know, you became a dancer and then you became a caller and then you uh, led people through national conventions and all kinds of organizational things. What in your background led you toward being that kind of a person? Uh,
Well, I guess it would be mainly in the area I lived when I first started calling. There was primarily mainstream clubs, but there was nothing at the plus and the advanced except one plus club, and another caller already had it running. So for me to call the advanced, I had to start my own advanced group, and then I started a C1 group. That's how I started looking out for my own caller run groups.
mhm. So give us a little history of how you got into dancing. Why did you get into dancing? I think I know the answer, but I want everybody else to find out.
Yeah. Well, my parents were started square dancing a year before, and they took myself and my sister to a teen club in Red Deer, which is about an hour and a half north of Calgary, where we lived. And I, it was like they dragged me to the dance hall. But after the third night of lessons, I was hooked. I really enjoyed it and never stopped since.
So there were no girls involved, eh?
At that time, no, no, I was too young for girls.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
I'm just checking to see if I've let everybody in here. I don't want to leave anybody out in the cold here.
Yeah, I've been letting them in if they come.
Oh, good. No wonder. I wondered how that happened. That's
Mhm.
good. Um,
They're sneaking in the
so
back door.
yeah. Oh, let me just let him have a recording. Okay. Um, so didn't your uh, was your father a caller or your grandfather or well,
Yeah, I'm third generation caller.
third
My
generation?
grandfather, he called in the rural areas of around Red Deer, old time dancing and square dancing. And then back in 66, 67, my dad and mom started calling. My dad did after they took their lessons after the first year. And a year or two later, they got me to it.
Wow. So it's in
So
the
it's in the
blood,
family.
in the DNA.
Yeah. Hmm.
Do you remember the first dance you called?
Oh, yeah. That was a unique experience. First dance I called. Of course, I took the caller school in the summertime, in the July, August, sometime in that area. I can't remember exact dates, but uh, right after the school was over, I got hired to call or teach lessons out of Rocky Mountain House. And shortly after that, they had anniversary dance for one of the clubs just north of Red Deer, a small club, but I got up and did my turn because they had multiple callers. It was a panel of callers for that event. And I get up and start calling, and I looked at the back of the hall, and I think every caller in the Red Deer area was there. There was probably about 20 callers standing all across the row, right across the back wall, watching me. I guess they were checking me out. Well, of course, I was sweating bullets.
I'll
I
bet.
didn't shake with the needle, but I was sweating bullets.
That's when you want to make sure you got a good secure windscreen on that microphone. It
That's
doesn't
right.
rattle.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, that was a unique experience.
so after school, then after the high school, what did you do? You can go in the service or take a job or go to school?
No, I just went straight into work. Well, when I was in high school, I had, just as I was finishing it, I had taken extra courses through my high school so I could finish early. And at that time, it was a trimester system where every 3 months you move into the next semester. And I was able to finish my grade 12 after 2 semesters. So right after, I guess it was about April, I went to work with where my brother was working at a warehouse factory place, and I worked there through the summertime right after high school. So I got working right away.
So you're still there, right?
And then following that, then I got no, not there. Yeah, that was in Red Deer. It was a fruit and vegetable warehouse.
So what did you do after that?
Okay, following that,
Yeah.
well, of course, my dad, he worked at a packing house. He was actually in the maintenance department, and he got me a job there in the night shift, working in the loading dock, and that was loading all the beef and hogs into the train cars, trucks, whatnot. So that was my first experience in the packing house, was in the loading dock. That was a night shift. I really liked that because working night shift, that meant I worked from Sunday night through till Thursday night. I had a long weekend every weekend. I consider a long weekend because on first thing Friday morning I was off, so I could go traveling, square dancing, wherever I wanted, and drive back Sunday during the daytime and early evening, and go back to work in the evening at midnight.
Uh-huh. Sounds like a pretty
Yeah.
good
So I did a lot of traveling.
good deal. Um,
Yeah, it was a good deal.
so yeah, um, so that's what you're doing now is still working at the warehouse?
No, I worked in the packing house. From there, I ended up working in the slaughterhouse part at Canada Packers and several different companies in the slaughterhouse for about 20 years. I did that.
Oh,
Then
wow.
after Canada Packers shut down, they closed up their shop, and I went back to the college and got my business at the college. And following that, I got into the cabinet industry, and I've been there ever since, the last close to 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just adding up all the years you've done here now. I think what are you about 102 now? Yeah. you
No,
you
yeah,
worked
no,
you worked here for 2 years, then 20 years, then I'm just razzing you.
I worked all my life.
Yep, as well as
Mhm.
doing the calling.
Yeah.
Um, so let's go into a little more present day stuff. So you're happy calling and cabinet making and everything back in about 2017, 2018, and then all of a sudden COVID hit. So you quit calling for 2 years, did you?
I quit calling when COVID hit. I stopped calling for about 2 months, and then I started calling again, and that was steady on Zoom. Of course, COVID hit in middle of February, somewhere in there, late
Mhm.
February. Everything shut down. through the month of March and early April, I didn't do any calling. And our area president of our area dancers association and one of the other dancers saw some caller from Germany doing some calling on Zoom. And they thought, hey, we could do that here in Alberta. That'd be a good thing. Give our Calgary area dancers a chance to get some more dancing in while COVID was on. They called me up and said, will you be interested in it? And I said, perfect. I would
Yeah.
love to do that. I always like to try something new. And yeah, of course, that's history. I've been on Zoom ever since.
Wow. Yes, you have. I'm asking these questions knowing some of the answers, of course. But I didn't know how you did actually get started on the Zoom thing. Because when I first moved to Cochrane, and I knew you were doing the Zoom thing, so I logged on, and you had several screens full, sort of the thing. There was just many people participating, and so I give you a lot of credit for keeping dancing alive for those of us who persevered with one person, two couples, that kind of a thing. And you're still doing it. So you haven't really, you did take a month off or something last year, didn't you?
Yeah, I took some of the summer off. I was doing a bunch of yard work. I put a new shed up and, load a bunch of gravel and a whole bunch of things. So, and also you can't go steady, 12 months a year on everything. So I took a bit of a time off, but I got back at her again once we hit early fall, continued on.
Yeah, still going. That's really great. So when did Barb come into the picture?
That was a unique story how Barb came into the picture. Back many years ago in my early 20s, I was a very avid skier. And I went out to Vancouver to ski at Whistler Blackcomb. And while I was there, a good friend of mine for many years was Ray Brenzy. And his club, the Campus Cavaliers, which is a university square dance club, was having their Christmas party. And he said, why don't you, there's a Saturday night, he said, why don't you come to the Christmas party? In between my daytime skiing. And I said, sure, fine. So I went there, and that's where I met Barb, and that's history too.
Wow.
6 months later, we were engaged, and it was a little bit of a long-term relationship for a little while. Moved to Vancouver for about 6 months to be near her, and came back to Calgary.
Wow. It's square dancing is a pretty dangerous thing, eh?
It is.
Yeah. I talk like a Canadian now, don't I? I say, eh? Anyhow, let's see. I got some questions here. Okay. Oh yeah. Well, you got your first car. So what about your first date? Must have been before Barb.
Oh yeah. I can't remember when my first date was. I
There's
guess
so
square
many.
dancing.
High school, of course.
No, nothing in high school.
No.
Like last weekend you were talking about my height. Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm around. No, that's okay. You thought I was a little shorter than I was once you met me in real life,
Well, you look
but no,
shorter than me right now.
yeah. Well, there. How's that? Actually, no. When I was in my early years, and I didn't even start getting growth until I was about 17 or so. So I wasn't very tall. So I wasn't really into girls, and girls weren't into me because I guess I was just too small of a person. And I was kind of a shy introvert. So I never bothered, getting involved. But once I got bigger and whatnot, interests changed.
So girls like the tall ones. Well,
I guess so.
yeah. I guess maybe I should ask you this
Especially if I'm
question too
too
then.
short.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me tell you, I used to be taller. Anyhow,
Mm-hmm.
so what make a better collar? Tall collars with no hair or short collars with a lot of hair?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that.
No,
Uh,
just I thought maybe you had an answer there for me.
no, there's no answer there.
Okay, that's not a question I had written down actually.
I
Um,
guess if you're tall, I guess if you're tall, that helps when you're at a dance where there's no stage.
ah,
You can look and see the rest of the dancers a little bit. Look around squares and see the back squares. Helps a
yeah,
little bit.
I'm always
Also
intimidated,
helps with
but
a long neck cord.
yeah, I'm always intimidated by the dancers when I come down off the stage. When you're on the stage, they don't look so big, do they? Then you come down off the
No.
stage, and all of a sudden you're looking like
Hmm.
everybody grew a foot taller. Um, what was your first drink? Beer?
Uh, Wine. It was wine. Baby duck.
Baby duck.
Yeah, bubbly wine.
Okay.
I remember some uh, tough nights with that.
Did your parents know?
Tougher mornings.
Yeah. Jeez.
What was that, Joe?
Did your parents know about the baby duck?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That was I didn't really because I was kind of an introvert for them. My early teen years, I didn't go and do anything wild and crazy. It wasn't until I got bigger and got away from home and
Hmm.
then I got wild.
I I grew up on a bit of a farm, and I had, as a pet, I had three ducks. I wouldn't call them baby ducks. They were babies at one time, of course. Um, but I didn't make pets out of my ducks after a while because one Sunday we had them for dinner. That wasn't that happy. Anyhow, um,
Hmm.
that brought to mind a question I wanted to ask you. Hmm. Wish I could remember. Anyhow, well, let's go ahead and that scene behind you has a good story behind it. Why don't you tell us about that? Uh, this is this is
Yeah,
what August in
if you want
Calgary.
to, yeah. No, actually, if you want to
Spotlight it.
hidden my screen, you can have a little bit better view of the
Yeah, good idea.
scene. There's a good story behind this. Uh, I'm sure some of you, or maybe most of you, know that next year is our Canadian National Square Dance Festival, and last year at the Fredericton National was the annual convention or annual general meeting, and nobody in the country of Canada spoke up to do the national. So I opened my big mouth and said, I'd be interested in I think we got enough people in the Calgary area and the Alberta area to look after doing the national. So I started putting together a committee, and then early fall we started looking at different facilities. Well, we were looking right across Alberta, and this facility that we were looking at, one of them anyways, was up towards Edmonton, which is about a 3-hour drive from Calgary in normal road conditions. So myself and another gentleman, we drove up there one Saturday morning. This was I think it was in November. The roads were good, all was fine. We get up to the facility, have a look at it, look at all the different rooms, checked out the hotel, restaurant, checked the bar, what kind of foods they serve, prices, whatnot. And we met with 2, 3 other people that were from Edmonton, and they looked at the facility too, and it was looked all really good. We had a bit of a coffee and whatnot before we decided to drive back to Calgary. Remember, I said it was a 3-hour drive, normal conditions. Well, soon as we stepped out of the hotel, there was probably a couple inches of snow on the ground, but it was blowing and semi-freezing. We're going to run into some conditions. About half an hour south after we left Niski, which was near Edmonton, where this hotel was at, it got really bad. And it became solid black ice on the highway, had to slow right down. We got close to an intersection, and we could just barely see the signage of the intersection. the highway got completely stopped, black ice. We sat there for about an hour until they finally cleared all the traffic. It was about a 30-car pileup, semis. There's all kinds of vehicles in the ditch all around. We finally got through there, and for the next 3 hours, we had to drive really slow. I saw vehicles passing us within 10 minutes of them passing us. They're in the ditch. We got home 9 o'clock that night. Instead of a 3-hour trip, it was close to about a 6-hour trip. 6 to 7 hours until we finally got home.
Wow.
That's what we have to do as callers in our normal traveling, going to dances and that. But that was something that happened when we were looking for facilities for our national convention.
Yeah. Yes. One in the Northeast, we ran into that all the time. Now I'm what am I? I'm another 1,000 feet above Calgary and Cochrane. So that's a scene Lorne should know. I go down, Gail and I go down and dance with to Lorne on some Thursdays and whatnot. And that's the scene we see most every week, all year. All year.
Not all year round.
No. Anyhow, let's do a poll question here. Let me see if I can find my poll. It's in here. Oh, there we are. There's polls. Okay, let's go with the first one here. Now, this is two truths and a lie. If you haven't done this before, and what you have to do is you have to pick out which one you think is the lie. Okay, so number one, it says May 2008. I was the mystery caller for the Pacific Northwest teen competitions. Then number two says, over a 10-year period, I hosted approximately 25 bus trips to various Alberta cities to square dances. So that's like 2.5 per year. And then in 1988, I hosted the first Canadian National Ski Square Dance in Northern Alberta. Okay, so you got to pick which one do you think is the lie?
It's interesting seeing some of the results coming in.
Yeah, some people are changing their results as we go. There's 30, 20, and 50. They don't think you did that.
It's a challenge.
Even after you mentioned how your background in skiing and everything, I'm surprised that they thought that the National Ski Square Dance thing would be the lie.
It can all be true.
Well, I mean, Lorne's an organizer. He gets people to do things, and I would have thought that was like I have no idea. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So if anybody wants to change their mind, okay, I'm going to share the results. Okay, there's my results. And let's go for. Now they don't think you did the first Canadian National Ski Square Dance. People have square danced in all different types of things, folks. Like farmers on tractors. That's a true thing. You can Google it. Horses, skating. I mean, whatever. So anyhow, let Lorne tell us about start with the two truths.
The true truths. Okay, the first question, May 2008, I was the mystery caller for the Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance competitions. Yes, I was. I did all the mystery tapes for that teen competition. That's a very unique thing. If you've never heard about the Pacific Northwest teen competitions, they've done it for 60 some years. Of about 7 or 8 teen square dance clubs in the Pacific Northwest. That's including Seattle, Bellingham, Vancouver, various different areas in the Vancouver Fraser Valley. and they all get together once a year in May for this teen competitions. It's a weekend event, and the competitions are in their calling. All the teens get together, and you have judges that judge the calling, and each caller gets up and does their calling spot. They're judged on their timing, delivery, etc. Then the teens, they'll get in up and they'll do their stint on round dancing, and of course then they're judged on their styling, timing, that kind of stuff. And then in the mystery caller, that's a unique segment, and there's seven different categories in the teen competitions in the mystery caller section, and each category is a different skill set and degree. Of course, you got your novice, the brand new dancers. There's preteens, juniors, seniors, intermediate, and every group is a different level and degree of difficulty. And what happens is the mystery caller will produce 2 tips per level, and it's very strict on their categories of what you can and cannot call, as regarding degree of difficulty, moves that you can and cannot use. And you produce these tips, send them to their committee before the competitions, and then following that, their committee will review every tip, test, dance all the material, make sure the timing is right, the material fits the category of dancers. And some of the things that also they have within that is it has to be, say, the first 25% of the tip has to be very attainable, and the last 25% is attainable, and the middle 50% has to be hard enough that will catch the dancers to possibly make mistakes. So what happens during the mystery dance segments, all the teens that are in that particular category are cordoned off in another building, except 3 squares of the ones that are safe. We'll use the example of the intermediate. All the 3 clubs will send a square from each of the clubs into the gymnasium, and there'd be about 400 people between, parents and callers and committee people all watching this. Once them 3 squares are brought into the gym, they close the door, nobody else can come in or out. Then the moderator will say, okay, we're ready. Once the teams are all squared up, moderator will say, okay, we're ready to start dancing. Everybody be quiet, and you can hear a pin drop from then on right through the whole competition until the tip is over. So what happens during the tip, the recording of whoever is the mystery caller is played. The teens don't know who the caller is until they walk into that gymnasium. So the recording starts and they start dancing, and it's all timed. And the timing is, they have 3 timekeepers on each square, and the average of the time of each square is tabulated, and the average is, that's part of it. They have judges around each of the squares, and if the square breaks down, the stopwatch is hit, and once they get going again, the stopwatch is again hit, and that's how they judge the skill set of the dancers. And the material is quite unique for the teens. Most dancers have a hard time doing it. I was talking to Barry Clasper. I'm sure a lot of you know about Barry Clasper. He was one of the callers for the mystery a few years ago, and he tested his tips with his C3 dancers. That's how he tested his material, to see if and even they had trouble with some of the material, especially at the senior level tapes. So anyways, after that's all over, then the tabulation is done. Saturday night, then they award the winning teens and clubs with the trophies and whatnot. So that's in a nutshell, what the teen competitions is all about. And they only do this once a year. The kids practice all year for this evening. They walk in a special square dance dresses that probably nobody has seen until the reveal, I guess you can call it. And they really dress to the nines in really nice square dance dresses and all matching outfits.
Yep.
There's various different colors that's done the teen competitions over the years. I know Don Mosier's done it. You heard me say Barry Clasper, Brian Clark. What other ones?
There's some really interesting choreography, Lauren, that I've heard about.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Clark was telling me about some. I can't remember exactly, but square through, but on every hand do a swing through first, and it was murderous sounding.
Yeah,
So we'll get some more information from Brian for sure too.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Them kids, in the senior category, some of the plus moves are included in that group of moves that you can call. One example would be in a 3-in-1 line, call a coordinate, and they would do it without flinching.
are these recordings available to anybody?
You can look at some of them on YouTube after
Yep.
the weekend is over. You can just, Google, Pacific Northwest teen competitions, and you can, view some of the events.
Yeah, that'd be interesting get for if anybody has a group that wants
Hmm.
to try this stuff. That'd be fun. So what
Yeah,
was the other truth on these? I think the ski thing. I think people skiing and square dancing would be really good.
yeah, that was a good idea, but do and that was kind of hard, so we decided not to do that. Backing up on skis uphill was just going to be too much time and too much space, so we
Yeah.
decided not to do that. But of course, the bus trips I did do. I was organized a bus trip every spring and fall, filled the bus up, and we took them primarily south to two cities south of Calgary, one in Lethbridge and one in Medicine Hat. Them were clubs that were far enough away. They didn't get any guest dancers or anything through the year. They just danced within their own area. So in the spring, I would take a bus trip down to Lethbridge and give a big boost to that area. And then in the fall, I would take a bus trip down to Medicine Hat. And of course, during that time, I took some bus trips up to Red Deer and Edmonton. One of our provincial conventions, I took a bus load up to Edmonton and did a weekend up there with them and our dance. And then several up to Red Deer. That was a plus Sunday afternoon. A caller from Edmonton and a caller from Red Deer. We all met in Red Deer and called a plus dance there. So I was taking a bus trip there, and the Edmonton caller would bring a bus load from Edmonton down to Red Deer, and we'd have a nice big crowd for that evening.
Yep. Those were the days when people could,
Yeah.
fill up a bus. We're lucky we can fill up a
Mhm.
taxi
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
there you go. You got two good truths and one lie on that. There is one more, and I'm going to launch that right now because it'll give us more insight into more about Lauren. Okay. So can you see that okay? It says, in my early 20s, I square danced 17 days in a row to one night off, then danced another 12 days in a row. That's a lot of dancing. And then in the 2014 Canadian Square Dance Caller and Dancer Marathon, I called a tip for 3 hours and 14.33 minutes before the last square finally quit. And then the third one is on one weekend, I drove 16 hours to go to a dance. I returned home that same weekend. Choice 3. Okay, so go ahead and decide which one's the lie.
Hey, it's a little bit of everything there.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah.
Give them a little bit of time to readjust or rethink. And people
Hmm.
look at the different answers other people give, and then they think, "Well, wait a minute,
Yeah.
maybe I'll change my mind."
Hmm.
Um, I really question the 17 days and 12 days. I don't think anybody can dance that much. Um, and then the dancer marathon thing, you called a tip for 3 hours. Um, I just put I'd record it and put it on a loop. Um, then one weekend, 16 hours, you return home the same weekend. Hmm. Okay, so it's looking like it's a tie.
Yeah.
Anybody want to break that tie? Oops.
Oh, we're getting pretty close.
Okay. I'm going to give you 5 seconds more. And I actually have a watch here that tells me 5 seconds. Okay. Share
Oh, I picked some
results.
good.
Here we go. There's the results. Okay. Let's do the same thing, Lauren, where you tell us about the two truths. And we'll talk about the lie because the lie is always really close to the truth.
It is. Yeah. These are pretty good ones. All right. The first one was in my early 20s. I square danced 17 days in a row, took one night off, and then danced another 12 days in a row. That is the truth. I was a dancing fool at that time. I would go out everywhere. And the interesting thing is, I would have danced all 30 days in a row. That was my target, was dancing 30 days in a row. However, on day number 18, I was going out to the dance. I was on my way to the dance, and where I lived, the laneway was fairly narrow. And of course, in the wintertime, I met a vehicle. The laneway was narrow. I caught my front tire in the edge of the ditch and it sucked it in. So I had to wait and get towed out and that. So I didn't go dancing that night.
Hmm.
And then I went back dancing another 12 days in a row. That's when there was a lot of dancing happening around the Red Deer area. I was all over the place. Okay, I'll go with the next truth. Or should I go with,
Yeah, go
let's
with it.
go with the next truth? Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
On one weekend, this is a good story. On one weekend, I drove 16 hours to go to a dance, returned back that same weekend home, another 16 hours. So I drove 32 hours to go to a dance. That is a truth. That was a unique experience. There was a caller in our area. His name was Phil Hansen. And him and we went up to Lacombe, which was maybe 20 minutes north of Red Deer. We went to a dance in Red Deer, up in Lacombe Friday night. Jerry Justin was calling that dance, and we wanted to go to him. But we had planned already to go to this other dance that weekend. We thought, we heard about this caller being awarded, milestone award for calling for 60 years or something like that. So we decided we're going to go out to Winnipeg. We drove 16 hours, left right after the dance Friday night from Lacombe, went east to Winnipeg, which is 16 hours. We alternated a few times, but I did a lot of driving for most of the time. At that time, I had a station wagon, and Phil, he would sleep in the back of the station wagon for quite a while. We drove out to Winnipeg, go to the dance. There's about 60 squares there. Sorry, Ed? Yeah. So we drove to Winnipeg. We get to Winnipeg and walk into the hall. There's about 60 squares there. And at that time, there
Whoops. Wait a minute. I unmute yourself there, Lauren.
didn't want to hear the rest of the story, did you?
No, I was just muting everybody else, so we didn't have any
Okay.
interruption. Go ahead.
So, anyways, we walked into the dance. It was a big award for one of the area callers, and we walk in, and there was about 60 squares in this great, big, huge auditorium. We didn't see a single lady to dance with, except the two callers' wives. There was the caller and the cuer, so we danced with them, their wives, all night. After the dance was over, we drove home.
Wow.
It sounds stupid, but we were stupid at that time. Crazy.
Who's, I missed, who was the caller that, for that?
Oh, I can't remember the name of the caller.
Oh,
Uh, it was a long, long time ago.
yeah, must
Yeah,
have
we were in our
been.
early 20s, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we did a lot of crazy driving things. Uh, if you want me, I can explain about one other crazy driving thing while we're talking about driving. Jerry Justin, one other dancer in our area, and myself. Jerry had two dances, one in British Columbia and one in northern Washington State on a weekend, one Friday night and one Saturday night. The three of us jumped into Jerry's truck. At that time, Jerry had a farm truck, which had a slip tank, an extra tank in the back of his truck. So he could go a long ways without stopping for gas. And he told us when we left Red Deer, be sure you go to the bathroom because I'm not stopping. Well, that was true. The only time we stopped was at the top of the Rogers Pass, which is a major mountain pass just west of Alberta in the BC area. And we get near the top of the Rogers Pass and they shut everything down. They were doing some dynamiting for avalanche control. We sat there for about 2 hours and then continued on and got to the first dance. Jerry called the dance. We jumped in the vehicle, went to the next dance down in Washington State, and then drove back. We never did stop for gas, I don't think. I think we did. That's the interesting thing on that trip. I fell asleep. I was on the in the passengers area of the truck, and actually it was Jack, another dancer, and Jerry. The two of them, sometime while I was sleeping, changed drivers because Jerry was tired of driving. So the two of them changed drivers without stopping. Don't know when they did or how they did it, but they kept going. I'm sure they found a good straightaway or when things were slowing down. Yeah,
That's
that's
funny.
another crazy trip.
Yeah, I can believe that of Jerry. uh, I can't even
Yeah.
tell some of the stories about Jerry. Anyhow,
Mm-hmm.
so
And of
what
course, the
about
last
this?
one,
Yeah, what is this lie thing here? It sounds so really good.
2004. Yeah, I can't see the whole sentence on this.
Oh, let me.
Read the whole thing off to me.
Okay,
Oh,
it
there you go.
says
I was able to expand the
yeah.
page.
If you click on it, maybe
Uh,
you can. Yeah,
yeah.
you called a tip for
Mhm.
3 hours.
It feels like sometimes I've called that many hours in a row. I've done sometimes where, say we've had close to exact numbers, and I'll just keep calling and rotate the dancers in and out, and for 2-3 hours straight,
Yeah,
just with very short breaks.
yeah,
Actually, that sometimes happens when I've called in Saskatchewan, which is the province straight east of Alberta, and in that province, when the dancers go to that a dance there, they want to dance all the time. They don't take breaks. For a caller, and I'm sure maybe some of you's been at some dances where you need a break. You got to go to the bathroom. Well, there, I literally had to, as soon as the tip was over, I had to put my mic down and go straight to the bathroom. Otherwise, they'd be squared up again waiting for me to go. So that's an example of almost calling straight time.
yeah. That would be. Wow.
Mhm.
Well, there's certainly a lot of stuff that you've been involved with. Um, so, what do you do as a hobby?
Well, of course, in the early years, I did a lot of, traveling for square dancing and skiing. I did a lot of skiing, like, one of my truths was I danced so many nights a week, so many nights in a row. I did the same thing in skiing. I would take all my time off in the wintertime and ski. I'd take all my holiday time off. I'd leave Calgary here, go out to BC and hit every ski resort I could throughout that 2 weeks. And in the meantime, every weekend I would go skiing. The average skier maybe skis about 7 to 10 times a year through the winter season. Now, I would say that's about the average. Some are less, some a little more. There was several years that I would ski 40, 50 times a year. That was a hobby that I would do a lot in the early
Oh,
years.
good way to
Skiing.
de-stress then. No doubt.
Yep.
So can you tell us about any kind of embarrassing moments on the mic?
I guess one of them, I don't know if any of you callers have done this, but yeah, you get ready to go to a dance and you go there, set up all your equipment and turn on the mic, and dancers are all squared up and seems a little breezy down below. A couple of times I forgot to zip my pants up. I've subtly zipped them up a couple of times without the dancers noticing. I've had one or two dancers mention, Lorne. I guess that would be probably the most embarrassing thing that's
Yeah.
happened.
Actually, when you get to a certain age, it doesn't matter. You just zip up. You know, who cares? If you go blind, you go blind. I can't help it. If you could have one superpower, what would that be?
Superpower.
Yeah.
If I could yoga like Joe.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Yeah. I was gonna say something about that, but can you do the auctioneer?
No, I could not do the auctioneer.
Oh man, I'm trying to give you a lifeline here, Lauren. But you can cough fast, right? Like fisherman's
Yep.
luck or something? Yeah, okay. Saved.
Yeah. Actually, I've got a recording of Fisher's, the standard Fisherman's Luck that goes fairly fast, and it's
Yeah.
a real tongue twister. But I've recorded it also where, as you progress through each sequence, I slowly increase the speed.
Yes.
By the end, you're flying.
Yeah. That's good. That's the hash one.
Yep. Yep.
No, that's a
But I
great one.
find it's easier to call it faster than at the standard speed
No kidding.
for
Wow.
some reason. I don't know why. Yeah.
I get tongue
Try
tied.
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you go fast enough, people don't know if you're saying the words or not, right?
Yep.
So what do you do if dancers get on your back about you're calling something they don't like, or calling too fast or too slow, or whatever? Do you have a particular comeback? Entertainers have to have some sort of comebacks, right?
Well,
For
one
these.
of the standard comebacks in this area right now is we just tell the dancers, these are only suggestions of what I'm doing.
Okay.
You can do whatever you want on the floor.
Yes.
They're just suggestions.
Yeah, they paid. What the heck?
Mm-hmm.
You dance whatever you want.
Or I'll say, I'll never call that again.
Yeah. Or
What was it? Last night I was calling a dance, and I know what it was. I was working the slide through 9-time combination,
oh yeah.
and some of the dancers were having that. I don't know if you ever seen that sequence. It's like a quarter tag setup, and not exactly like that, but you have a couple on the outside and 4 down the center, and you can do slide through 9 different times from there. Well, a few of them were having a little bit of troubles with the slide through, the ladies especially. So I told them I'll never call that again for you guys.
I'm not sure,
Of
but I
course, they
think
know I will do it again.
yeah, they know you'll do it again. Yeah. I'm not sure, but I think I introduced that originally at the National Square Dance Convention when it was in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it in the C1 hall because in the challenge, there's only 2 of us that they ever cared about doing singing calls. One was Ron Libby, who is, y'all remember Ron as being a fantastic singer, and myself because they want to laugh at my yodeling. And so a lot of the callers would come in and they'd razz the heck out of me while I was calling, just because of the yodeling.
Mm-hmm.
But I did I put together that slide through 9 times thing. And it seemed to go. Now I might not have been the first, but I felt like it. But that's a fun
Mm,
thing to do. I'm glad you mentioned it. Now I got something for
mhm,
my next dance. Uh,
mhm.
so you
Well,
have,
I started that. Yeah, I started that in the evening. I started working slide through because I saw a couple of the dancers were not turning correctly after the slide through. So, oh, there's a good workshop move for the evening.
yeah, that's
So I
great.
worked slide through a few times, got them in sashayed 8 chain through type formation, and said slide through. Of course, that puts you in lines facing out, and then okay, let's expand on that. I think the next tip, then I started working the slide through where the boys were together in the center box.
Oh
And then
yeah,
I started working this girls, and then the following tip, I did the slide through 9 times
yeah,
after them.
yeah.
I built into it. I didn't throw it at them cold turkey.
Oh no, 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 no,
That's
no.
not me.
That's a fun thing to do. Now you've evaded my question entirely, and you're losing points.
Oh,
My question
what was the
was,
question again?
you don't even remember. Okay, what superpower? What's your superpower going to be?
Hmm. Um, be a singer like Ron Libby.
Okay, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's.
I think I'd like that one myself. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah.
let's see. So if you're gonna write your own autobiography, of course that's what autobiography means, but or if you were having someone write the story of your life, what should the title be?
That's a loaded question. Well, it's got to be something about me being, the love of square dancing, because it's been part of my life, all my life basically. And as soon as I was just turning 13, that's when I started dancing, and I've been doing that all my life, nonstop. So the title, I don't know really how you.
Hmm.
Mm, my
Well,
life as a square dancer or something like that.
we'll have to work on that.
Hmm.
Can you describe yourself in one word? Is that possible?
No, it's not possible in one word.
I can. Well, it would only be one of the possible terms, but detail or detailed. I
Hmm.
was going to use two words. Um, uh, most of
Kind.
you, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, very much so. Oh, tell us about your sound system. Now that you mentioned,
Oh, my sound system. Well,
yeah.
of course, yeah. There's some good stories about my sound system. For many years, you know, well, actually, when I first started calling, uh, I asked around for the various different callers, what sound equipment would be good to use or, to buy. So I asked 2, 3 of the callers, and, they would give their input. And at that time, like you were talking earlier about me running, square dance weekends and doing that kind of stuff. So I asked what would be good equipment that any caller would like to use if I hired them to call. And at that time, they all said, have a yak stack and a standard Hilton amplifier. So I bought a yak stack and a Hilton, and I used that for many years. I really liked it because, of course, yaks are good sound in poor sounding rooms. You can get away with, of course, they don't have the widest range of sound, but you can put good sound in poor sounding rooms. So that's what I used for a lot of years. Then I decided to upgrade to a different sound system, and I bought various different speakers from sound stores rather than square dance calling speakers. Some PV speakers and electro voice speakers, and I wasn't really 100% happy with them. They kind of lost sound a little ways down the hall. How we all know sound after you get about 3, 4 squares, the sound volume of that drops. So one night, one of our dancers, he actually works at a sound company, and he said, I've got a speaker that you would like. I could bring you a demo model for you to try it out. And lo and behold, it was a new Bose speaker. It was the Bose F1. He brought it in and I hooked it up and he says, I'll buy it. I really like the sound. Powerful speaker, and it fills the room 100%, full range, does a great job. I would put that up against just about any speaker out there that's on the market. It really does a nice job, but it is a heavier speaker. It's about 5 pounds heavier than a double yak. So it's a heavier speaker, but when I bought the speaker, I also bought a speaker stand that is like a pneumatic. You pull the pin and it just takes the speaker up automatically. Takes all the weight off. So the weight wasn't as big an issue. A few years ago, I had used it for 3-4 years, and we were at the Canadian National, which that year it was in Fredericton, not Fredericton, sorry, in Regina, Saskatchewan. And during the weekend, of course, at the start of the weekend, the sound company that was hired to provide the sound in the main hall, was a commercial outfit, brought in this great big mixer board and 8 powered speakers and covered the whole room. However, the way they set up the speakers and whatnot, I didn't think it was going to work very good. So I told the guy, I think I could do that with my system, with my one speaker, the room. And he just scowled at me and went on. So I didn't say anything, and he continued on. And Wednesday night at the Trail End dance, of course, the sound was not very good. Just I think it was primarily the way the speakers were pointed, and so the sound was poor. So through the weekend, the chairman, he was really concerned about the sound, and Saturday night was their final dance, and they opened up several of the walls in this big convention room to be one great big dance room. And during supper time, I suggested, well, why don't I set up my sound system right beside this commercials outfit, and we can do a test before the evening dance. We did the test with the same music, separate equipment completely, and he said, use yours. We did it, and it worked. Covered the whole room, great. After the first tip, Barry Clasper was the first caller on stage, and shortly after that tip was over, I was at the back of the hall sounding for each caller to get the voice music mix correct. He said, I had to be in that hall to believe that one speaker could do that whole room so well. The volume at the front and the back were just about identical. And it was a fairly wide convention room too, and it covered width-wise too. So that's my great experience with a Bose speaker, and I've loved it ever since. Well, last year at Fredericton, they came out with a new Bose speaker. I call it the baby Bose. It's an S1 Pro. It's a tiny little speaker, but it really does a nice job. It'll do, cover about 10 squares comfortably. You can just about pick it up with one finger. It does a really nice job. So I've been using it ever since for our regular club dances. But I still have the big Bose, the F1 for big dances.
Yep, it does work. Lorne's been using that at the dances we've been going to and all, and he said how it fills up the room and rooms beyond. And so I've gone into different rooms, and you can hear, even with walls, you can hear fine. It's just great. So, how much commission are we making on that, Lorne? Are we
Oh, I wish at the Regina National Convention I did get commission, because several callers talked about buying that speaker after that convention was over.
Yeah.
Because they liked it. They were so impressed with it because it covered so well.
Yeah, there are so many out there that are
Yep.
usable, but those two in particular are fantastic. And it's, for us in Canada, price wise, it's a better deal, probably in the States too, for that matter. So, and yeah, we're coming up close to the end here, Lorne.
Oh,
Did you have any other things you wanted to mention?
hmm. Well, asked earlier about, when I started and whatnot.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm sure there's a few other callers that started like me. Went to the caller school and then started teaching class lessons maybe in the fall. And that's what I did. I started teaching class lessons in the fall. And at that same time, when I started teaching class lessons, I started calling for our advanced group. And then shortly after that, I started calling for our C1 group. It was a teach group at that time, but I started doing the teaches also.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple, 3 years later, then I started calling plus.
Oh, so you called a higher level before you called the lower level?
Almost, yeah.
Almost.
It was this situation where there was no caller in the area that called the program, and we had some dancers that could dance it and wanted to dance it, so that's what
Super.
happened there.
Well, we do have a number of callers who did start at the challenge level, and then they became popular enough
Mhm.
and had worked their way into the mainstream and teaching levels as well. So that's in a way, I think that's not a bad way to go. If you
Mhm.
know the challenge material or the advanced material, to be able to modify it and I mean, some of our challenge callers are so um, mm, they're so good at understanding what they're doing that it's hard for them to realize that some dancers have a hard time with slide through. Um, so
Mhm.
it doesn't always work, but it's a good
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Another thing about me is hindsight. I wish I would have been a teacher in math.
ah,
Yeah, but in my early years, I was more of an introvert, so getting in front of a crowd of people was hard. Well, once I got into calling and that, yeah, I got over that. And math is I really enjoyed math. I even took extra math courses when I was going into high school and uh, as my electives. How many people do that?
yeah, right.
Yeah. So
Super. Does anybody have any questions for Lauren? Stephen, Yolanda says Stephen has his hand raised. Okay, Stephen, by way of Yolanda, go ahead. Thank you, Yolanda.
I would have loved to have gone skiing with you. That sounds like a lot of fun because in Texas, I went skiing for the first time when I was about 19 and fell in love with it,
mhm.
but I couldn't afford to go from Texas every time.
Yeah.
So, and at one point, my dad was a professor and he almost took a position at the university in Mexico that would have been closest to Santa Fe
Hmm.
ski resort,
Yep.
and I would have been there every day.
Yep.
But
And I was a very avid skier actually. I had already had, because where I worked, I took my full first aid, CPR, and all that kind of stuff. So oh, perfect combination. I'd be not a ski instructor, but a ski patrol person,
yeah,
helping injured people and that.
I'm a retired firefighter. That's
Yeah.
one of my,
So I was actually looking at becoming one of the pro patrols at Lake Louise, one of the major ski areas west of Calgary. The day that I went for the testing, it happened to be a bad snowstorm day, just like what's in behind me. They closed the highways down. I couldn't get out to Lake Louise, so I didn't do it that weekend, and things with work and that changed, so that kind of got put on the wayside. But that
yeah.
was one of my targets at that time.
Well,
And
And
on
actually,
the
I paid to go skiing.
that's a good thing
on
that happened, because otherwise you might have got into calling.
That's true.
We got a
Mhm.
question there.
on the Bose speaker,
Mhm.
there was one of the conventions here in the States, the national conventions. A friend of mine was telling me that Bose actually came out to the convention and tried out one of their speakers. And they had it set up in the room, and the first caller gets up there and starts to call, and this guy comes running in and checks the system, goes, "Where's the cable?" And running out, brought this cable back in. They had a special cable made for Hilton.
Yep.
And once he plugged that cable in, everybody goes, "Oh," because it improved the sound so much more, even over what it was. And
Yep.
it was pretty good the way it was.
Yep.
But
Something with Bose, well, with regular square dance equipment, it is just 2 wires on your speaker cable, which is an unbalanced signal, whereas Bose is 3 wires, which is a balanced signal. Of course, our Hilton amplifier only takes unbalanced signal, and in the Bose, you can hook up balanced signal wire XLR cable. Well, to do that, you have to have a conversion box that converts it from balanced to from unbalanced, to a balanced signal. And I have one of them conversion boxes that converts it to a balanced signal, and it improves the sound quality. You can really hear the difference. If you can plug the Bose into standard square dance collar cables, which is just the 2 wire, but what a difference. And that's probably what they did, was they hooked it up with the XLR cable, the 3 wire balanced signal.
Yeah,
and it is immensely better.
Yeah, there's quite a big difference in that. The 2 wire lets too much other noise coming in. Yeah, quite a big difference. Eileen has her hand up. Eileen from Australia. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I'm just interested because I'm just a dancer, not a caller. And I find that it's quite amazing the amount of time that you traveled to do your calling, especially that 17 days and 16 days or whatever. But what kind of, or how do you do your calling? Like some people do site calling, some people have to spend days preparing. I'm just wondering, when did you get the time to actually prepare to do all of this calling? What kind of system did you use?
Okay, in the early years, the first 20 years when I was a dancer, and that's when I danced and traveled to dances for almost 30 days in a row. I was a dancer at that time. And then since then, when I started calling, of course, at the early years, I memorized a lot of sequences and work modules, and tried to use all the different methods of calling. Then I got into the site resolution, and that just opened up a lot of doors. But I tried to emulate 3 or 4 different callers that I've hired to call dances that did, whether it be site resolution or other methods, and I tried to follow their lead when I really got into calling, and it really helped a lot to keep a very connected evening. Like Ray Brenzy, I really followed how he did his calling. He actually, by profession, he was a teacher, and how he progressed his evening and built his material from the start to the end of the evening. What they're dancing in the first part of the night could be at a standard setups like slide through. Then by the end of the evening, they're doing stuff like, wow, I never knew I could do it from all them different setups, or do a move that they never believed that they could do. But site resolution is the primary form of calling I do now. But I still do a lot of going on the computer and working the material, seeing if you can do it from different formations, looking at the starting and ending. Do you end up with boys together after the call, or do you have a mixed waves, or whatever it may be? Because I want to know how the formations end. That help a little bit? Your understanding?
I think that answered your question quite nicely. Before we get to Dawn, I'm going to get to Dawn in a moment. It's going to frustrate her to no end, right, Dawn?
exactly.
Yes, to not be able to talk. One of the things that I know about Lauren is because as I mentioned, my word for Lauren would be detailed, and he's taught and mentored many callers and done caller schools, and he thinks like a teacher. He thinks, what is the most basic form of this call? How do I do it? And how do I expand on it? And he does a beautiful job on it with very few words, and the dancers move. And that, that's, to me, that's a big secret, Lauren, of a good caller is few words, and the dancers are successful right away. So anyhow, let's go to Dawn. Go
I
ahead.
get to talk.
You get to talk. You're amazing.
I've been quiet this whole time.
I know it.
I dance. Yeah, I dance with Lauren twice a week live with his A1C or A2C1 group on Tuesdays and his Plus on Thursdays. I also dance with him on A2C1 on Sunday nights on Zoom. Now, Lauren is an exceptional caller. He's one of those guys that can get anybody out of a tight situation. He puts us into weird stuff and he gets us out of tight stuff. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us how Zoom has been for you as a caller.
Oh, it's a whole different thing of calling. When I first started on it, I'll give you a little bit of a history how I kind of got into it, how it evolved. Of course, when the pandemic hit, we were all sitting at home not doing anything. I had in my library cassette tapes of Ed Foote. I hadn't danced or worked my C2 for quite a while. So I thought, well, I'll go through his tapes. So I went downstairs and danced the Ed Foote teach tapes at the C2 level, 7 phantoms, and went along and went through all the tapes. And in about a month or month and a half, and then I was asked to start this Zoom process. So it was a real good lead in to visualize the other 7 people or 3 people in boxes of 4 or full squares. So I was able to visualize where everybody was at. So it was a good lead in on getting into the Zoom calling, because that's a whole different way of calling and viewing the dancers. Like, of course, when you're up on a stage looking at 8 people, it's not so bad. But when you're looking at screens where you have 1 or 2 people per screen, or you have one screen that has a lady dancing as a guy, another screen where there's a guy dancing as a lady, and you have no couples sometimes. So I'm looking at 2 screens calling full square material. So it's a whole new realm of calling. Not all callers and not all dancers can do this Zoom. We learned that very fast at the early stages of the pandemic. Once I got going in the Zoom, I started getting guest callers on, and I had all kinds of different guest callers call with me on Zoom. Primarily, well, it was on all levels. The mainstream, I had a mainstream program, plus program, and an advanced C1 program running on Zoom various nights. And some of the callers picked it up really good, did a great job. And some of the callers I thought, oh, probably would do real good, call a lot of years. But they worked at it just like the dancers. It's not an easy thing to do as a caller to call on Zoom, because part of it is your timing, because there's a little bit of a time delay for us callers and seeing the dancers move. So it's a challenge in that respect too. But I enjoy it.
That's great. That's great. I see some of the people that are tuned in here who understand this. Liz has got a great smile there because she knows she has suffered through some of mine as well, my Zoom calling, and she goes to Lauren's, and she's on Wednesday night with Dave Eno and a bunch of people. So yeah, it's a different way of calling, of keeping track of people. Not only that, but of calling and doing setups so they will be successful. You can't just say heads past the ocean and chain reaction. It doesn't work that well. You've got to know, are they going to catch on to a real person that they're dancing with? Are they going to recognize where they are? So, and Lorne does a beautiful job of that. I'm always amazed. I get to tune in once in a while on Sunday nights now, and I'm still amazed at how well he can just keep track of where people are. And there are certain tricks. We won't bore you with them, but Ruth over there in Texas, there many times I'll put her over top of Dawn, because then they become a couple. Dawn dances the girl's part, or Dawn dances the boy's part. Ruth dances the girl's part. And if they're one on top of the other, they almost look like a couple. So anyhow, but Lorne has a real knack for doing that. But he's had many years of practice now, haven't you, Lorne?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Anybody else got a question? No. Alrighty. Well, I want to thank Lorne especially for putting up with my crazy questions. I always try to come up with something that's a little different for each caller. Lorne, when did we meet first?
We met at the Ottawa National Convention. I'd known you before, and we got talking sometime through the convention, and then at the end of the convention, they had a Callers Appreciation event, I believe it was, and everybody else was off doing their thing, having the drinks and busying around. You and I, we ended up sitting talking that whole time together.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I remember.
We had a real good conversation there.
Yeah.
That was great.
In fact, I remember one of the ladies had come up to me while we were talking, whose husband had been a caller and had passed away, and he had bought one of my Learn to Yodel tapes. I used to teach that, and she said, "I cannot find it. Can I buy another one?" So I sent her one, but I had done a callers clinic kind of a thing up through Edmonton and Calgary and whatnot years before. But yeah, we had a great conversation there. That was good.
Mhm.
So when I ended up moving to Cochrane, Lorne's name was the one I had to get a hold of. Yes.
Mhm.
I thought, I know this guy.
Yeah.
He's going to either say, do not come here. There's no place for you. Anyhow,
Oh, I
so, yeah.
welcomed you with open arms.
Yes, you certainly did. You and Barbara are fantastic. And that's why the dancers there love you. And anyhow, if we have no more questions, unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and...
Hannah's got her hand up.
Oh, Hannah. Oh, yes. Great. Go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah. I just wonder, when you started calling, what did you find was the most difficult thing in calling?
Singing calls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're technical.
I'm more technical. I really enjoy working the material, and I enjoy teaching. One of the first experiences of teaching was my dad. He ended up having a heart attack, and he could not call for a while. There was another caller that was just getting into calling, and of course, a lot of callers to get in new people into calling is because they like to sing. Well, this other guy, he liked to sing. And I was already working the advanced with teach tapes and whatnot. So the two of us, we teamed together to continue my dad's class lesson and club till the end of the season. And he did the singing calls, and I did all the pattern teaching.
So when did you learn how to sing?
Well, I just like any other caller, I just got them singing call records and worked at them.
So you didn't buy Joe's yodeling lesson?
No, I did not. Yeah.
How do I turn off these screens here?
Yeah, no, the technical part is what I enjoy it. I like to get the dancers through the material. I don't like to call the KISS principle is keeping it simple, keeping it successful, even though it could be interesting or a little bit more complicated. I love working with, calling hexagon, six couple, squares inside of squares, that kind of stuff. There a few years ago at one of our provincial conventions, I had a hour-long introduction to hexagon, and I was going along doing my thing, and I saw Jerry Justin, walk by, and he continued he continued on, and after the session was over, I went into the color's room to grab a coffee or something like that, and he said, "Lorne, you're one of the few colors that when you do hexagon, you resolve the square, the 6 couples all the time. You just don't keep going along, and if they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. You resolve it all the time. I find it just as easy to resolve hexagon as it is regular square dance material." And just this last little while, at one of our advanced nights, I've learned how to resolve 6 couple, where, for example, you have 2 head couples and 4 side couples. I've learned how to resolve that way too. So that's kind of interesting. I see some.
But when you started, you started to teach,
Mhm.
was that not difficult?
No, it was not difficult because I had already gone through, when I learned the advanced and the C1, it was by the Edfoot 2 couple, or the Edfoot teach tapes. And if anybody ever remembered dancing to them, he's a very technical, very clear, concise instructor. I take my hat off to him. He produced some really good, clear teach tapes. He taught everything really good, and I think that's where I got a little bit of my teaching skills, was through dancing them teach tapes.
Oh, that's good.
That's where I got some of my teaching from.
That's good. Yes. Hopefully we'll get Ed down here one of these days. Still trying to get
That
still
would be
trying to get an answer
I
from him.
think he could. Mhm.
Yes, we
I'm
have so
sure
many
he's got some
unique.
good stories.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We've there are so many unique callers around the world, as well as dancers and round dance folks. Now we're going to be off for a couple of weeks because I got to go back home. So I'll be traveling. The end of April will be Billy Harrison. And I remember Bill when he was a young guy. He was so handsome. I hated him, but he was a good looking guy. He had a beautiful wife. They were a nice couple, and he could call and sing. The kind of guy that you gotta, your competition. You gotta work to be as good as, or close, whatever. So Billy's on April 30th, I think. And then we start with the International Month in May. International Month, I call it now, because we got Di Green from the UK. That's going to be fun. Who else we got? Brian Hotchkiss, crazy guy from Australia. Oh, and I think Brian Clark from Vancouver. And again, just interesting people. And I find it so much more fun when it's live like this than watching a YouTube video, because you see the original reaction when I ask a really stupid question and the caller goes like, "What are you talking about? Don't do this to me." But it's all part of calling. The community is fantastic, and I appreciate y'all calling, or all joining in, dancers and callers. So thanks again, Lorne, for agreeing to be on the hot seat. And thanks to everybody
Thanks
else
for
for
having
coming
me.
along. Yes.
I hope everybody got a little bit of insight behind me, what
Yep.
I'm all about.
Both sides of the mic. Yep.
And maybe we'll see you next year at our Canadian National Square Dance Festival here in Calgary. Of course, I'm a working fool. I'm the chairperson for that one. I stuck my nose in, and we're doing the festival here in Calgary.
Yes.
3 days right before the famous World Calgary Stampede. So if you come early, you can take in the Calgary Stampede,
It's after
take
the
Banff, Lake Louise, all sorts of things as a tourist to experience here in Calgary area.
It's,
Lots to see and do.
yeah. It's
I've
a
done my
beautiful.
commercial.
Yep, that's good. I'm glad you mentioned it, Lauren, because it's a beautiful place to be. You know, the mountains are our backyard, the prairies are our front yard. It's just gorgeous out here. I talk like I'm here now. And the hospitality is fantastic. The Stampede is one of those must do things. And you've got 3 people on site right here now, very involved in making sure you're going to have a good time. You got Dawn, who's in charge of something to do with the convention. I don't know what you do, Dawn.
Secretary promotion.
Secretary and
Publicity.
promotions, yes. She'll have her hand in everything because she's like Lauren, she's a doer. And I'm in charge of programming. So if you're a caller, I'm the one you're going to want to be nice to. And I'll give you the best spots. Okay. So we'll see you at the end of the
Well,
month.
Lauren's our chair.
Pardon me?
Lauren is our chair.
And
Lauren is our chair.
Lauren is the chair. He's the guy that makes it all work. Project engineer, man. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
Signing in.